Hi, I'm Regas Sager.
And I'm Deshanel Sager.
And we're wrecked and certified. Come on, wife, keep up with me. I know it's a Saturday. Lord have mercy. No, I am so glad that all of you have joined in to tune in with us.
Yes, we're glad to be back.
Yeah, we're glad to be back in the BD Local Studios. And to our friends, Tim and Sadie, they do an outstanding job for us. And always like to give them a shout out. The last show we talked about goals, beginning of the year, etc. Hopefully, those of you that have started your dieting plan, you have not derailed it yet.
You haven't fell off the track.
Derailed with donuts. So you have not fallen off the tracks. Yeah, we talked about, just a little recap before we go into our subject matter today. We talked about visualizing your goal.
Visualizing your goal.
We
Creating a plan,
seeing yourself in that thing and writing it down and being very strategic
and putting those goals to action.
Yes, putting them to action. So hopefully, if you're out there on the treadmill right now listening to us, get it on, get it on, get it on, lift those weights, etc. I know for me, I have been trying to lose a little around the midsection, and I've been keeping my goal. Now, I will say this, because I believe in moderation, so I will have a snack or two, or probably possibly 3. Okay, let's go 4 or 5. But anyway, I do it in moderation, but I have been losing the weight. So I'm really excited about that. I got my little new jumpsuit on today, and I was remarked.
You look good in it.
Yeah, exactly. Someone was making some jokes earlier, but that's okay. We good with it. We good with it. But today we want to talk about what, honey?
We want to talk about blended families.
Blended families.
Blended families. And I believe we have a really good show here today. And we want to tell a little bit about our story, how we always want to start with that. Where we come from, our perspective of blended families, just so keep it real, keep it raw, so that it'll be able to help those of you that are out there that are getting into new relationships and experience those blended families. I know for me, Regas and both myself, I know when we got together, Regas was kind of a little hesitant because I at the time had a younger son.
Yep, you had a crumb snatcher, and I was like, no, I'm not. Look, I don't raise 4. I'm not ready for another crumb snatcher. We could be cool. We see each other at church. We straight, but I was not willing and ready. Yeah, I had to look past that really hard, and then that beautiful radiant smile, and I was like, okay, we do a little more talking, and then she put a little hook in my jaw, and then the rest was history. But no, we're going to talk about that today.
We're going to talk about blended families. And I was thinking about that thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, who is one of the biggest all-time TV blended families? I asked Regas, and he didn't know. He kind of stumbled upon that. He was like, and I was like, babe, the Brady Bunch.
The Brady Bunch.
And he says, we dated ourselves when we say the Brady Bunch.
I know. I got this new sweatsuit on. This is a 2021 suit. And here I'm talking about the Brady Bunch. But anyway, it does have some relevance here.
It does have some relevance. But, the Brady Bunch, they always ended on a happy note. But sometimes with blended, to come back to the reality of things, sometimes blended families, it can be a little bit of a rub. There can be challenges where the friction and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You're bringing in his kids, my kids. You bring in mom, dad, aunties, uncles.
Baby mama,
baby daddy.
Oh, my gosh.
All of that drama with it.
And trust me, that is so real. I was looking at some statistics here. They said 16% of children in America are in a blended family situation. 16%. That's pretty huge. And they said every day, 1,300 families are coming into a blended situation. That's pretty staggering. That's pretty staggering. So we wanted to, like Dave said, we wanted to talk about it from our perspective and then give you some kind of baseline as to what you can do to kind of help yourself if you're entering into a blended situation. Because you, really, at the end of the day, you want harmony, you want peace. You want love, you want all those things to resonate in your home.
You want everybody to get along, and you don't want to. You're coming together as a union, one. You guys are coming together as one, but to bring all of those extra added entities into that relationship, sometimes it can be challenging.
Yeah, it's very stressful.
It can be stressful. So let's start with the kids, because they're the main they're the main part of the blended family. I I know as far as me. So let me start with our story. My story.
Yeah, start with your story.
My
Let me make sure it lines up with. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No, so I actually come from a blended family. So my dad remarried when I was older. And so I have a stepmom, and I don't necessarily say that I always got along with her. We had some challenging times where, I didn't agree with what she said and she didn't agree with what I said. And I didn't live in their household. But we went through the process, and over time, as I spent time with her and I got to know her, there was a time where I was like, okay. And the time didn't come till when I had my son. So my parents were married for about 5 years, and then I had my son. And then it was like something changed in that relationship where it was like, okay, I want to be in their lives, and they want to be in our lives because I have a son, and my dad wanted to see his grandson, and and I say her name, Beverly, wanted to be a part as well. And so in things you become mature. For me, I had to grow up and become mature a little bit. It wasn't about me, I have my son, and I didn't want to take those experiences away from him. So I use Curdy to say he brought us together. And that relationship, as we begin to spend time together, dinners and things like that, that relationship began to evolve, and I begin to grow up and see things in a different light. And to this day, I mean, we have the best relationship. I can call her, I can text her. Last year. We went to Hawaii, celebrated her birthday, but I'm grateful that I was able to have an open mind. But I know not everybody has that open-mindedness, and I'll use my son as an example when Regas and I got together. So my son was younger, and Curdy was about 9. Yeah, he was about 9 or 10. And my son is like a creature of habit. If you take him out of his whole element, you throw him off. And so when we got together, he was like, I'm not going to stay with you. I'm not going to live in the house with you. That's not my dad. And da, 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 da. I'm like, okay, well, how do you handle that situation? I was like, okay. At the time, honestly, I wanted to beat the brakes off of him. You're going to do what I say, but you have to handle, the situation a little bit differently. You have to understand, you're taking them out of their whole element with your previous spouse or their parent, and you're putting them in a whole different new environment with somebody that they're not used to. And so I had to look at that thing, and I was like, okay, should I put them in counseling and just to deal with this? Or is this something that, I'll put them in this situation and see how it plays out and how it pans out? And so with him, he was standoffish, and, he would come in the house, and I set boundaries, and I set some laws with him. And I said, you know what, Curdy, hey, baby, you're in this situation, but you know what? You're not going to be disrespectful. You're not going to come in the house, and you're not going to speak to Regas. Every time you enter into this house, you're going to respect him. You're not going to talk back to him. And you're going to treat him how you want to be treated. And he's going to treat you the same way you want to be treated. And so I said, so when you come in the house, you're going to speak to him. And so that was a little bit of a stepping stone. Every time he came into the house, and he would go in the room, shut the door, and I make him come right back out and out. Baby, did you speak? No. I'm like, okay, you're going to get out there, and you're going to go back out there, and you're going to speak. It would be a little high. And as time went on and gradually, it became where he would learn to have conversations, where he would come out and have conversations with him. And Regas can talk to how he felt on that side and how he dealt with that. So,
well, I think, from mine, the early beginning, because, I've been in, unfortunately, other relationships that did not work out. And so my children were like, okay, here we go again. And so when they saw us, getting serious and looking to make a life with each other, there was a little bit of a cold shoulder, not from a disrespectful point of view, but from a point of view of, Dad, we've seen you go down this road, before. We don't want to get you hurt. We don't really know her. We know her from the perspective of kind of meet and greet at church and stuff of that nature, but we really don't know the lady. And so as we started to develop our relationship and I started to, introduce you to the family, there was, a couple of awkward moments where they were kind of like, okay, do I do this? Do I shift here? Do I move left? Do I move right? And I totally understand that. And for all of you out there that are engaged or getting ready to go into a situation where you're dealing with someone else's child, you have to have understanding. And even from your own children, you have to give them a way to vent. And it's okay. You don't want to shut them down.
No,
you want
don't
them
want to do that.
to express their feelings, but at the same time, you want to establish, okay, here's how we're going to ride this thing. Here's how we're going to deal with this thing in a respectful manner. And with Curdy, I knew because he's a big fan of his father, rightly so. Most children, they idolize their parents. They idolize their mom. They idolize their dad because, that's who they grew up with. It's like dad is all that. Mom is all that. And so I certainly didn't want to take that away from him. And I told him, he's like, hey, I'm not here to replace your dad because, he's got a wonderful father.
Yes, he does.
Curtis has a wonderful father. And, and I tell that to his face. And so my whole premise was not to, you gonna respect me, boy, or you gonna do what I say, boy, and no. That relationship was built over time, and I knew in the early beginning, like going to some of his games and doing this, I felt that was too early because I need to kind of establish some things in the home first and have a relationship with him before, I'm sitting in the stands and rooting him on, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just had my own way of kind of getting through that process. And I think it worked for us. It worked. Yeah. It worked for us. And now, Curdy, I talk with him. Hey, what's going on, with school? What's going on, with practice? What's going on with friends? What's going on with homework and all that other stuff? And we've sat down and we've had lunch together and dinner together and all that. But it takes but it takes time. And for those parents out there that are in a blended relationship, wanting something too fast coming from that child sometimes can be devastating. You want to make sure that you give it time, but you set the proper boundaries and you make sure that you operate within those boundaries with respect and harmony.
And even with that situation, I wanted that relationship to happen overnight. I would be on Regas and I'd be like, Regas, why don't you? And he'd be like, and I know that it was an issue with us because I would go to his game or Curdy's wrestling tournaments and games and stuff. And I would be like, why don't you go with me? And Regas would be like, it's not time. It's not time. And I didn't really understand that. But I was like, okay, well, if he says it's not time, well, let me step back and just take a back seat to that and let the relationship pan out. Let them build their own relationship. And I want to say this. When you're in that situation on both sides of the party, the child's side and the person in the relationship in the blended family, it takes time. It's not an overnight process, so don't give up on it. Don't give up on that child. Don't be like, they're just being this way and I'm not going to bow down to this child. And if you want to be no, none of that. Be patient with that thing because, Rome wasn't built in a day. So some relationships are work. And I know that relationship with Regas and Curdy, it was a working process and it still is a working process.
It's still a working process. And I think one of the things that, like you alluded to, babe, is sometimes we want things so quickly and we're not willing to allow them to mature and take on the life of them of their own. And with that being said, I think it'll create so much damage and collateral damage within the relationship because then it starts to spill over. Because if I would have, just kind of ramrodded that thing through and said, well, you're going to do this and he's not doing this.
You're going to come hang out with me. You're going to go this place.
Guess what's going to happen? He's going to take that over into his father's environment. And now it's going to create a rift between you and your ex because I wanted something so quickly and not letting the process and not letting that relationship mature. And that's, and I'm telling on myself, I was guilty of that in my previous relationships because I didn't have the right maturity. I did not allow the right type of operation to happen because I wanted something yesterday instead of just allowing myself to have patience, understanding, compassion, all of those different things because sometimes I'm impatient and I could be a booger. And now
yes, Lord.
hold on now, honey. We on the show now. No, I'm kidding. No, you're right. But with that being said, as you get older, like you alluded to earlier, and you mentioned this, you start to take on a different set of maturity. You start to look at things from a different perspective, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm getting into my own selfish self, and I need to step back and I need to review this thing from a different perspective, for a whole different persona. And so when I looked at it from that angle, I said, you know what? Let me just, I was telling you, it's like, no, it's not time. It's not time. Because I wanted to make sure that when we go to the games and I'm up there in the crowd and he looks up there, I don't want him to get out of his element, out of his flow, because I'm sitting up there in the stands and brother man's like, that knucklehead the other day, he and I got into it and it disrupts his chemistry. And so I wanted to make sure that before I take that next step, I wanted to make sure that within the home there was understanding and we had a relationship there.
Yes. The other thing is that on the other side of the fence, so Regas mentioned about with his children. Now, his children are grown. They have kids of their own. We have grandchildren. And so on that
Isn't she a young young grandmom? Oh God, look at there. Just beautiful. What, 32?
Yes, and holding. But it was different, like you said, they were a little bit of standoffish because of his past relationships. So I on my side, I had some work to do as well, and the oldest child, Jessica, we sat down. She talked to all her siblings and got an idea of all their collective thoughts and what they how they were feeling. And so we sat down over breakfast one day and we talked and she got a greater understanding about where Regas and I were coming from in our relationship and where we stood. And just, sometimes, and like I said, over time, our relationships have grown and are still continuing to grow. And just, it's not an overnight process thing. And we've done family functions. That's the other thing. When Regas and I got together, I'm used to my little small family functions. That was all new to me. To have like 30, 40 people.
The blowout. I mean, just bang. And then all of a sudden, overnight, you went from 5 to,
So 5 people at a Thanksgiving to 30, 40 Christmas.
5X.
It was all different. And I'm an introvert. So to them laughing and hollering and because they're loud. They're loud folks. The Sager crew is loud.
Yeah.
But they bring a good time. And I wasn't used to that. So I'm that introvert, so I sit back and I watch and I learn how do I fit into all of this puzzle. And then you just have to know your place and not try to be over the top or not try to be something that you're not. Be yourself in that whole sense. Don't lose your whole identity trying to be something that you're not just to make a relationship work. I sat back and I watched, and as we would play cards and talk and have a good time, and you just have to find that group, that niche, or where you fit in with that relationship with those children. So.
And I really believe that it was not forced. It was not difficult, because I think inherently my children, and they've said this to me on numerous occasions, that like, Daddy, we don't care who you're with. We just want you to be happy. And I think that right there was the kind of the aha moment for me. Because I was like, oh, she's got to be a certain way, or she has to do this, and she has to do this, and she's got to look this way, and she's got to. No, 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 no. I think inherently your children want the best for their parents. I mean, and unfortunately, some parents are apart, and fortunately, some are still together. And whatever that looks like, the dynamic there, hey, you know that yourselves, but. I think every child just wants to see their parents happy, and just
Absolutely.
like parents they want to see their children happy and successful. And I think it's a two-way street. But I think when it becomes adversarial is when you try to force, a square into a round, and you try to, bring somebody in, and you try to get the children, and you try to say you're going to do this.
You're going to like
way,
this person.
and you're going to like this person no matter what, and you don't allow that relationship to develop. And I think that's what happens in a lot of relationships. They try to force feed. It's like a baby. You put the baby in the high chair, and then you're trying to feed the baby peas, and peas are everywhere on the high chair, on the floor, on the wall. They don't like it, but you're still trying to force feed peas. And that doesn't work too well, because it's just going to turn into a big mess. And so what I've learned over the years in our situation is just let it come.
Let it ride.
And even with my sisters, that took some work. That took some time for those relationships to blossom and to develop. And I think once they see that, hey, look, you guys got something strong and you guys are really committed to the relationship, people, with any kind of couth, with any kind of decency or any kind of, hopefully good thoughts, they'll come around because they'll see what you're trying to build, and they see what your relationship is all about. And I believe that people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and they want to be a part of something good.
Yeah, yeah. I know we talked a lot about the whole kid aspect because, that's who's in your home or outside of your home. But let's talk about another aspect of blended families. Let's talk about how those kids got there, those outside people, the baby's moms, the baby daddies, all of that. That plays a huge
part,
huge role in blended families because, like for us, even though Regas's children's mother, and they're grown, we still have functions where, their mom is going to be there, and I'm always cordial. I always speak. We hug each other. We talk. And I don't have any animosity, which I shouldn't. I mean, I don't have any reason to have any animosity but it's like put your differences aside. If you have differences, put your differences aside in order to make those relationships work. One, for the kids need to see harmony. They don't need to see you fussing and fighting and always at odds with each other, because that causes so much friction from when you take that from one house to the other. So like for my son, my son is back and forth between his dad and us. And, I never speak ill of his dad. Regas never speaks ill of his dad. We always speak positive things of the other spouse. Also, when it comes down to holidays, Regas, he always asks Curdy, what'd you get your dad for Father's Day? What you doing for your dad? He always encourages that, to continue that relationship and to let him know it's not all about him.
Right.
It's not, I'm also thinking about your dad and making sure you're still looking out for him.
Exactly. And to your point, babe, I think that's really important because if you look at it, there's your side, our side, the father side, and then all of the other, outside people, baby mama's dad,
baby
mama, and
baby
all
daddy.
that other stuff. But who's in the middle? The children.
Yeah.
The child. And I think when a parent becomes so overly saturated with their household and they don't care how that child operates in the other household and how it affects, because granted, a lot of times there are two sets of rules that child has to placate to on a daily basis or on a
Yeah.
weekly basis. Like, okay, over moms, I got to do this, and this. And over dads, I do this, and this, and this. But over dads, I don't have to do this. But over moms, I have to do this. And so that child, if we're not careful, we could be raising children with a lot of bitterness and a lot of discord and a lot of strife and hatred because we do not allow them to operate to some degree in those households and give them a little understanding.
Yeah.
That's to me what makes a blended family is having understanding and respect. And I had to learn that. It took me some time to learn that. But you cannot regulate that child only in this environment, because when that child leaves that environment, they're going to a whole different set of circumstances. And so we have to be able to maneuver and understand that dynamic in both of those situations.
And sometimes you have to sit down with that outside parent and have those conversations so that you can have some type of unity in the discipline, the schooling, even, what you're going to do in their activities, their sports, if they're going to church or whatever the case may be. You may have to sit down and have conversations about how you're gonna manage that child, and that comes to where you're coming together and reasoning together. Okay, how we're gonna handle these situations. And I know that Regas, he's, I'm able to have a relationship with my son's father. Regas is not jealous about it. I know that comes up as sometimes, why are you still talking to them? Why we have a child together? We need to be able to talk and discuss those things. And he's always has an understanding heart about, okay, you guys are working on something, and he never questions me about it because, one, we have that trust in our relationship, and he knows that he can trust me as far as that, as still having that relationship with him and talking to him. And even, with my son's father, at times we reminisce about how, our son grew up, or share pictures, old pictures that he may have and that doesn't bother Regas. He knows the relationship that we have with each other. And not everybody has that in a blended family where they may say, oh, I don't want you talking to them, or this, and they may have some disagreements with each other. But again, you have to put those differences aside
For the betterment of the child.
For the betterment of the child.
And as we conclude here and getting ready to wrap up, and
we're going to come back to this.
We're going to come back to this because I think it's a very important subject, and we can go dive a little deeper. But there are so many families out there that are blended today, and I think it is incumbent upon the parents on both sides of the track to really have understanding, compassion, respect, and honor for that other spouse situation across the track, and say, hey, look, I respect your home, he respects my home, or vice versa, she respects my home, blah, blah, blah. But I believe at the end of the day, the one is in the middle is a child. And if we're not careful, we will forget about the child, and we'll go back to our, fighting corners. And then the child is in the middle of the ring trying to, fight and fend for themselves. Technically, it's supposed to be the two parents coming together fighting for the child. And I think that is so important that we do not forget that you and Kurt, me and Jackie, have children together.
Yeah.
And if we cannot come together and discuss the priorities and the things going on with that child, because we're remarried, because we have somebody else in our life, that to me, that's immature. And we're not looking at it from the betterment of the child.
And you can damage the child.
That's
the most important thing. You can cause more damage in that child and baggage than anything because of your discord and your disharmony that you have with each other.
Right. And so we have to be careful of that. And like you said earlier, sometimes you got to put your differences aside and deal with what's in front of you, the responsible thing to do. And just like we were saying, I was earlier, and I'll say this as we get ready to conclude and wrap up, I was listening to one of our older podcasts back in October, and we were talking about change. Blended family is about change. It is about putting your differences aside. You've moved on from that old spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, and now you're in a new situation, but you still have a child that has remnants, that has, from your previous situation that you have to deal with from a very responsible perspective. And so if we can help anybody today, look at it from that perspective. And a couple announcements we want to make as we move to conclusion.
Last week we had the Melanated Market at the Outlet Collection Mall. First, we want to say thank you to the Outlet Collection Mall for allowing the Melanated Market to host the market in your venue. We will be back February 13th and 14th. We're going to be having another drive. Thank you for those who donated to the hygiene drive last month, but we're going to be hosting another drive. We're going to be doing poppable food cans and socks. So please, please, please come out and support the Melanated Market, and don't forget to donate.
Yes, please come out and support the Melanated Market. There was over, I think, 47, 48 vendors out there with good products, good services.
Yes.
We had a really good time, and we would love to see you there. With that being said, we are Wrecked and Certified. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Thank you.